So today's agenda would be 1. The requirements of AnyAut application. How do we break or understand the requirement? How do we have to come up with questions, thereby be ready with test scenarios? And then we'll see on how do we write our test scenarios. Okay, now for any requirement, right, the most primary thing is the understanding about the domain the client is working on. I am assuming many of you are already into testing, or have some idea about the testing environment. Okay, now if you take any application, say suppose AnyAut itself, this is more like a product specially designed for the testers itself, right? Now from testers perspective, what are the problems that they are facing and how this particular application is providing a solution. This can be understood only if you know what are the activities that go in the actual test environment, right? So this is about understanding the problem statement. If you understand the problem statement, then it is very easy to do the testing and create the test scenarios accordingly. It's as simple as that. Now you know what's the purpose of having Gmail. Now think about times when you don't know anything about email or sending the images, etc. So how did you understand the Gmail application? You came to know this is what I will have to send, this is how I will have to see my messages, right? So you know the problem statement. That's the reason it was very easy for you to explore Gmail, right? The same way, unless and until you understand the client's requirement, it's not easy for anyone to write effective test scenarios. Okay, I directly jumped into test scenarios, so don't worry about it. But just want to give an example how to do an effective requirement analysis. So the core thing is you would have to know the domain where the client is working. Okay. Now, from the real-time perspective, okay, there are a couple of things that you need to make sure. One, the master requirement might not be available for all. Okay, so this is the core problem every tester faces. You are not sure about where the requirement is, what is this requirement all about. Okay, many of the projects are either maintenance or they have started way before, which means these are all ongoing projects, or they are simply maintenance projects where the product is already developed and is in live and only few enhancements or defect fix are happening. Okay, we might not be fortunate enough to start from scratch. Now in that situation, how to do requirement analysis? Okay, first you need to gain access to the application. it can be as discussed earlier, it can be a web application. Let's confine ourselves to both these things, database application and web application. Okay, now in case of web application, you need to know the prod URL, production URL. Okay, or if the test environment, test link is working fine, then start exploring each and every section of the web application. Now, once you start exploring and creating the flow diagram and the logical diagram. So these are not these can be easily created, like say suppose I have the web application itself, say Gmail itself. So what's my flow here? I will have to first enter the URL, and then I'll have to that will open a login page, and then when I give a valid credentials, I'll get into the landing page. So there's a flow here, right? And that's the logical flow. If any error, what do you say? If an invalid username is given, you will get an error message. So you will have to create your own flow diagram for the entire web application. Now comes your actual requirement. By now you know the flow of the entire web application, right? So what happens now? The requirement area which is defined on the page where you will have to test, or the requirement which you have to test, you by now know what are the dependencies, right? Example, I will have to say, let's take Gmail itself so that everyone can what to say, relate to it. So I will have to add a feature where if I am emptying trash, generally it would be the first 30 or first 20 as per the what do you say, the criteria that is mentioned. I mean, page wise it will get deleted, but there's a new option where you can empty the complete trash. There's a link in the trash string. Okay, so that's a new feature that's getting added. So now how will you test, how will you do the requirement analysis? Where should it be there? How do you come to the trash string, right? So this is all that will be, that you can easily relate when you see the flow diagram, right? So for me, obviously the trash will be here on the left side, right? So I know now how to go to there and then click and delete, right? So if I select this, I have this option, select all 127 conversations in trash, right? So this is how I'll be testing it. Okay, so that's the reason from web application testing perspective, you need to know the entire flow in order to do the effective requirement analysis. Okay, now if it is a new project or altogether you started from scratch, okay, then how do you gain? In that scenario, in the requirement, now again, if it is a matured model of testing, which means the company is one second. Okay, Karthik, yeah. So if it is a matured model of testing process that is followed by the client, you will have mock-up screens of the application that is being developed. So mock-up screens are not are the screenshots that will depict the actual look of the web application. Okay. Now in that case, you will be able to know the flow. Again, you will have to create your flow diagram here. Okay. Now if you create that, and the same process you will be following. Okay. All right. So the same method that you followed earlier, you will have to follow here. But the only thing is, you are not able to see the real-time application there. You are just what do you say, going by the flow that is given in the mock-up screens of the application. Now, this is a happy path actually, where if you are using a mature model of testing process. And again, going back, there's something called as CMM level 1, 2, 3. So hope everyone has a fair idea about what is this process all about. So that's the maturity level of the company and the process that is following. So CMM level 5, 4 are advisable these days, and most of the companies are striving to maintain CMM level 4 and 5 where the documentation is effective. Okay. Okay, 1 second. Karthik, can you share the folder? Wireframe.
Sure. So primarily, guys, um, in the same case for AnyAut, we started with the wireframes. That was the starting point. Mahesh, I believe you have the, yeah, so there you go. So this is what we started with as a wireframe. Wireframe is nothing but the UI blueprint, only UI, as to what we want to develop, how will each screen look. And then we went about doing the coding for HTML for UI using PHP and AngularJS, and then comes the database along with the functionality using PHP, right? Just giving an example from a development perspective. How does the development happen, and how do we start testing right from the day one of development?
Okay. Okay, there's a question here. I'm not from, okay, Ruxana has a question. I'm not from technical background, don't know CMM.
Oh,
Okay, so don't worry about it. So it's a,
CMM,
yeah, Karthik.
sorry,
Yeah, Karthik,
Mahesh.
go ahead.
Okay, CMM is something called as capability maturity model for a company and its operation. How does a company operate at a certain maturity level? When we talk about maturity of a company, like a human being, that oh, this guy is a mature guy, or this woman is a mature lady. We talk about maturity as how matured is this company to do services and perform certain actions that they do. So each level is defining what stage they are on. All these are more of how we present a company to the outside world. CMM level is basically talking the capability maturity model of the delivery and the service offerings, how well matured they are. When we call about maturity, we talk about things like their audit process, where they review everything that's happening. We talk about their documentation process. We talk about the people management process. We talk about so many other things within it. All right. By itself, CMM is a huge thing in the industry in terms of what all it contains. And then we have things like Six Sigma or ISO standards and so on, which are more internationally governed bodies of how we try and mature a process, and how can we assess that yes, this process is good. Very simple, guys. We have multiple ways to achieve the same goal. All right. So look at this software overall, software industry, IT industry. We talk about it as a process, a workflow. From one point A, we need to go to point B. We will have multiple routes to it. So which is the best route for it? That is what is very critical. So these standards define that for us.
So CMM 4 and 5 are considered as a very matured where each and every process. will be documented. Unless and until you have a document, you will not start any of your work. Okay. So if you are if you are having a client who is following this process, you will get a good documentation. As we showed here, we are maintaining the wireframes for each and every web page that is being developed. If you can see here, one second.
And guys, to be honest, the kind of documentation we're maintaining is maybe CMM level 1 or 2. Because what will come up when we do a real implementation is to have help diagrams to each and every point in the screen and explain what they mean. Like for example, login, registration, where should the field come, what should it contain, very in depth. That's like an organized way to do software development. But when it comes to smaller projects or smaller organizations, we tend to fast track the whole process using the agile methodology, and that's where this becomes effective. So agile and CMM kind of contradict each other. How we go about the end result should be the same, but in terms of the approach is where the difference comes in.
Okay.
Sorry, Mahesh, go on.
Yeah. So simple example is, see, the dashboard that was supposed to be created should have say this screen AUT details or details. So it should have name, URL and industry as a drop down box and a submit button. Okay. These are text boxes here. Okay. Am I again assuming here we all know what's a text box, what's a drop down box. Okay. Now, if you see these, the same has been depicted here. Okay. The only thing is the industry is not a drop-down box now. Okay. Now, this is where the testing comes into picture. So the requirement says I should have a drop box for the industry, whereas in the actual developed web page, you don't have it. Okay. I'm again jumping to the actual testing, but just to understand, this is where the testing comes in handy actually. Okay. And this is the usage of having mockups or wireframes. All right. Now we discussed about a happy path. Now what if you are in a more agile process, or you go with requirements discussed on phone, on call or email? So how do you go about it? This is the most trickiest part and most problem oriented area. The reason being, you don't visualize the requirement. It's just the perception of the person who is giving you the requirement, right? Now, we don't have a technology or brain where you can go and see what the client is thinking in his mind, right? It's what he is trying to depict over the mail or call will go as a requirement, right? And in an agile process, right, you will not have a detailed documentation. Agile has a one-line statement of the requirement. So going back to the trash example itself, so the requirement here will be mentioned as I need to have a delete all link in the trash section. That's it. Now, what is the wording that should go into that, or how does it should look like? What is the coloring? Where it should be placed? So on and so forth has to be discussed only on the during the interaction sessions, or we call it as stand-up sessions for the agile process. Okay. In that only we will have to explore what should be there, how should it look like. Now, right from this perspective, if you see, it's the tester who need to understand the entire flow prior to the requirement analysis, right? So unless and until he doesn't know about the application, he or she might not pose or question all the requirements that should go along with this requirement. Okay. Everyone is having the same problem. Radhika says she couldn't listen. All of you are able to listen me.
I'm able to listen, Mahesh.
Okay. Radhika, can you see please? Yeah. Okay. So you want to repeat. Okay. So see, in an agile environment, right, you will have a one-liner as a requirement. Okay. When we discussed about the having a single link to delete all the messages in the trash, okay, in a matured model you will have the mock-up screens and it will depict the wordings in that particular line. Okay, if you see, I have this is the select all 1 to 7 conversations in trash. Okay, now this number will come from database. Okay, so this is a variable from the UI perspective. Okay, now these wordings will be given perfectly in the mock-up scripts if it is a matured model. Now if it is an agile model, you will have a one-liner stating that I should have a link to delete it, all messages in trash. That's it. Now how do you go about it? Okay, the approach here will be, unless and until you know what exactly is the requirement about, okay, how is the look and feel of the web application, or how is the data stored there in the particular web application, and how are we displaying it, what is the wording you want. This will only let you know what are the questions that you should pose as part of the requirement analysis, right? So this is most trickiest project where the requirement analysis needs an in-depth understanding about the application that is being developed, right? Here in the mature model, half of the work of us is done. Okay, but here unless and until you act as an analyst, okay, I'm using the word analyst because in agile you are no longer a tester, you will be acting as a test analyst. Okay, so test analyst is someone who knows about the application and analyzes how and what it should be looking like and gives a continuous feedback saying that, hey, if you are doing this way you might not be able to do it correctly, instead do like this. So what are you doing? You are trying to analyze and give a suggestion, whereas here you are just a tester, so someone has defined it and you are going by the flow. Okay, so in agile you will have to do some extra work. Alright, so that's how you will have to do your requirement analysis based on the type of process that we are following. Okay, so far any questions? We'll pause for 5 minutes. Please post your questions before we go ahead. Yahuda, you had a question? I have unmuted you. I see your hand raised.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yes. It is not quite clear to me. What do you mean by Agile has one line statement of the requirement? Can you please go more details on it?
Okay, so in agile environment, right, or the Scrum model which we use, you will have user stories defined for each and every sprint. So sprint is something like release cycle. Generally it would be of 20 days or 1 month. Now in that, when you define a requirement, it would be in one liner or just a para kind of thing, where it will tell I want to have a link in the trash and this should be able to delete all the messages that are present in trash. So that's how it would be defined. That's it. So generally user stories will be a single paragraph or a single liners. Okay. In
Thank
that
you.
situation, you don't have any mock-up that is being developed. You don't have any mock-up or white script. Okay. So then
That's
how
okay.
do you do the analysis? How do you know which screen is it? For a newcomer or a new tester, how he or she will be knowing, right? So there you will have to do the analysis more. Okay. Yes, Agile has less documentation, right, Sumati? Hope it answered your question, Huda.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Yeah. Radhika is asking, more mature model is SDLC. Uh, SDLC is the software development lifecycle. STLC is software testing lifecycle. SDLC is more of development cycle, whereas STLC is testing lifecycle. Okay, in STLC you got waterfall model, okay, and then you got V model, okay. Now when you join, you can have, I mean, you will be using Agile as a separate thing, but see, if you know what type of model you are using, that will help you in finding whether it's matured or not. So it doesn't define even if you are using waterfall model, it's matured or not. It's more of process. So whatever model you are using, that doesn't define the maturity. The maturity is defined only when you have a correct process. Process is different, the model is different. Okay. To break it up again, I mean, to clear the air again. See, process is like the, what do you say, the protocols that will be defined. Say suppose I have a development cycle, a product to be developed. How should I go? What are the prerequisites for it? How should I what should be documented? If anything goes wrong, what is the escalation process? So these are all process things. Whereas the actual development, how it should be done. So first you should do the requirement analysis, then the test case preparation, and parallelly developer will be doing their code development. You do the test preparation, the testers will do the test preparation. So this is more of model. How do you do the actual thing? But if something goes wrong or if something has to be done, what all care should be taken, what all should be documented, that's more of process. Okay, so we cannot club process and to the model. Okay, hope it answered your question. Any other questions, please? Okay, I don't see any other questions, so we'll go ahead. Okay, now for today, right, let's discuss on the AnyAut application. Okay, so for this, the high-level functionality requirement, I mean, the functional requirements have been prepared by our team, and this is a good document as such, actually. Okay. Now, this application has a user module where a user has to register using the basic information. Okay, username, first name, last name, email, and company, country, phone, user title, and role. Okay, so which means these are your basic uh, columns that should be entered in the registration page, right? Now, if we have to do the analysis of this requirement, how do we do? Let's take the approach. First, if you see any general application, what will it happen? You will have a URL, you will enter into the home page. Okay. In the home page, on the right side, you will be having either sign in or existing user login. Right? When you click on sign in, you will get the username, password, or if it's a first time user, you will get a link in the bottom. Right? That's how general web applications will look like. Right? Right? So now let's see whether the same has been used or not. Okay. Now we will go to the wireframes. If you see, you get into the home page and you got a registration here link, right? So that's how, if you are using an agile model, you will have to analyze as we discussed earlier. If it's a mature model or if you have a wireframes or mockups, you can go and see how the login page, or what do you say, the registration page will look like. How do you navigate to the registration page, right? So if you got a one-liner, you will have to analyze how the other applications will look like. Okay. So if you have to see, let me show you a couple of applications, then you will understand. So in Facebook, you have in the landing page, you got the email and password where you can directly log in, or if you have to create your account, you will have a separate section. Okay, so this is one section and this is a different section. Okay, whereas if you take Citrix, Citibank, you will not have a new user creation login, new user creation link anywhere here. Okay, so if it's a first time user, you will have it as a separate, right? So if you see, every application is following a different process, right? Now, when in agile way, when I said I want to have the registration link, right? How do you want to go ahead? So this is what you will have to pose the questions in the daily stand-up meetings, or when the requirement analysis or the user story discussion is happening. How do you do that, right? So which approach you want to follow? So that's where you will have to get a clear picture. Okay, so that's the agile way of doing. Whereas if you have got enough documentation, right, where I'll have to go into a landing page where I'll have registered here link, and then I'll go to the registration page where I should have username, first name, last name, email, company, country, phone number and role. And the same has been depicted in the requirement. Username, first name, last name, email, company, country, phone, user title or role. Right? Now, as per the mock-up, country is a drop-down box and role is a drop-down box. Okay? Which is not mentioned here. Right? So in the requirement analysis, we will ask, hey, as per the mock-up, it says country is a drop-down and role is a drop-down. Now, if it is a country, how many countries it should be shown? It is the list of countries where our what do you say, the product is being used, or it's for universal, right? So that's how you will start analyzing it. And roles are defined by the company or the client, which means I have a director role in my company, whereas other companies might not use the same terminology. They might use CEO or CTO, right? In that case, how will you have a common platform or a common role definition, right? So this is more of confining to with respect to the client's requirement. So that's the reason earlier, though it was a drop down, now it is not a drop down. Okay. So if you see the application, AnyAut application, 1 second. I think I don't. 1 second. Let's see. I think it is. One second, guys. Okay, so this link is not working now. Okay, but if you see, this is how you will have to do your requirement analysis. Okay, all right. So this, or let's take another page so that it would not be confusing for you. Okay, I have an edit profile link where I have this information. Now let's see whether the same can be done for admin. Edit profile. So if you see, the same has been depicted here. First name, last name, email, so on and so forth. The same should be present in the mockup. Whatever is mentioned in the mockup and agreed should be shown here in the actual also, right? Now, as we are in the requirement analysis stage itself, you will have to find out, you will have to see whatever I click on edit profile, it should be of that particular person itself. I should not be able to see anyone else, right? So now if I change the role, if it update, how should be the admin notified? Okay, it's correct, right? So today I am a tester, tomorrow I might be changing into a project manager, right? Now the AnyAut's admin should be able to justify that, right? Which means he should get a justification from the person who is editing his profile that my role has been changed and can you change accordingly, because there might be areas where because of the role change you might you might have an additional features added, or you might lose some of the features that are already present in the application. So you never know the impact of the role change. So this is what we will have to confirm during the requirement analysis phase. Hey, if the role has been changed, will it impact the application or the configuration of the application? If yes, please let us know the impacted areas. So when we do our testing, we will verify those areas as well, right? So you need to ask or pose all these questions based on whatever you see. If it is just a text box, we need not worry. If it is a drop down box, which means we are giving some predefined values to the client or to the customer, whoever using this application, right? Which might impact the other areas of the application, which you never know. So those questions you will have to ask in the requirement analysis phase. All right. So Asha is asking, is the data populated from Devi? Yes. All the applications now will have these default values coming from the database. Okay. But few what do you say, applications which might not have large amount of data or having only minimal 3 or 4 records as the drop down, they will give it in the code itself, in the respective code. If it's a Java code, in the Java itself, in the Java code itself they will mention. Okay, but 100% if it is a matured model, if you are following, they all should come from database. Again, these are the questions that should be posted during the requirement stage itself. A good point that you brought, Asha. Okay, so these are the few areas where or how you should proceed doing a requirement analysis. Okay, any questions so far? Yeah, put up again.
Yes, thank you. And just to reiterate what you just been mentioning, that once you are given the requirement, you should be asking the questions to get the clarifications on how you go about and what initial steps you have to take in order to follow the requirements. Am I correct on this?
Yes, right.
So among the questions that you mentioned is like whatever you mentioned would be some of the questions that should be asked, right, in the appropriate department, or who should we ask to get the information on the or clarification on the requirement document.
Okay. Now, as we discussed yesterday, right, we showed you some of the user roles in any of the project, right? If you see yesterday's PPT, we have few roles defined, right? Test manager, software developer, and tester. Now, if the project is defined where you have to go through the project manager and directly to the client, then you will pose your questions through project manager to the client. Or if you have a business analyst sitting at the client side and a business analyst sitting at offshore, then the question should go through the business analyst. And business analyst will, if at all it is known to him or her, they will clarify. Else, they will pose the question to client, and the client will answer them, or the customer will answer them. Okay, so that's how the process would be. I hope this is a question you wanted to ask.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. Sri Sai is asking if the drop-down that is predefined and it is not populating from database, when selected, how does it get saved? Will it be in DB or will it be saved on the fly? No. See, when any user selects the data, okay, that should be populated in the database itself. The reason being, you got thousands of users and you cannot save them as cache. You all understand the cache concept, right? So the little information will be stored in the browser in the form of cache. Now that cannot happen in the real time, right? It should be saved somewhere so that it can be retrieved universally from any of the browser or any of the location. So that's the primary use of having a database, right? So whatever selections you do, it should be stored in the database itself. Okay. Hope it answered your question, Sri. All right. Now, any other questions, please? Yeah. So coming back, there's something called as Requirement Clarification Log, RCL. Okay. So this, if you see any of the project, there will be multiple testers me write it here. Multiple testers working on master requirement which is shared among these testers, which means one complete application cannot be tested by one single tester. Okay, so you will have parts of it, you will have sub requirements, and each sub requirement will be tested by one or more testers, right? While doing that, they will have questions on their sub requirements. Now it will be better to post them all here. Okay, the question posted by and the requirement where the question was asked, right? Now this will help others as well, because obviously if the master requirement is divided into pieces as a sub requirement to each individual person, there is a dependency of one sub requirement with the other sub requirement, and that's obvious, right? So in that case, any answer that is provided for the questions asked might impact the other consequent sub requirements, right? So that's the reason you will have majority of the companies will maintain a requirement clarification log where all the questions posted to the client or the BA business analyst will be parked here. And say suppose a new person is coming and he is testing, he might pose the same question. So instead of waiting for the answer, right, you can go and see in the clarification log and you can get and the solution can be awaited. Okay. All right. So that's one usage of RCL. Any questions so far? All right. So, okay. There's a question from Savita. So, do you mean we can log the questions about the requirements in the RCL? Yes. Yes. So the answer is yes. Yeah. Question is asking how tester can define defect to developer. This Kushal we will discuss when we discuss about the defect lifecycle. Okay. But just to give an answer, we will have a test management tool where whatever everyone in the software development cycle, be it a tester, be it a developer, you will have a common location where they can see the test cases, the defects open. Okay, so when a tester open a defect, you will have columns in the what is it, the application where it will say to which developer it should be assigned. Okay, now again there's a clause here. A tester may not be able to directly assign the defect to the developer. It should go through a flow, right? So first it should be assigned to test manager. Test manager will assign it to the respective product manager, development manager, and development manager will assign to the developer who have done that piece of code. So that is the process that will be followed. Okay. This I'll again explain while the defect lifecycle management. Okay. Can you explain the RCL again, please? Okay. See, whenever a requirement is given, okay, if you are working in an onshore offshore model, okay, it's not that easy for the offshore person or the offshore testers to interact with the developers or the business analyst on a day-to-day basis or on a hourly basis, or it's not a straightforward communication or a one-to-one communication, right? So you'll have to post them somewhere through the email or chat, which is not a documented way, where which is a one-to-one communication. That's it, right? So it might be lost somewhere. Instead, if you have a clarification log RCL defined and posted or shared in some common drive where the entire team members can look into it, be it a developer, be it a tester, or tester from a different module can look into the clarification based on the requirement ID. Okay, so master requirement R is defined, one requirement is there. I have divided into R1, R2 sub requirements. Now whatever is the requirement ID, I'll post it here and the question. Okay, and that would be answered by respective BA or client. So that's what RCL is all about. Who will develop RCL? RCL will be placed by the project manager or tester. It can be anyone. So RCL is just an Excel sheet. That's it. Okay. It will be placed in a common location and you will have to post your questions. Okay. See, just like you have your shared drive, Google Drive, right, where you can post all your documents, which you can share based on the rules. So if you give an access to another person, he or she can go and see into the Google Drive. The same applies even in any of the project. You will have this Excel sheet created and will be shared with among the team members, and whatever is the question that will be posted here. Okay. Yeah, sure, Huda. We'll add it to the Google Drive. Okay. Okay. Shri Sai is asking, how can RCL be used in a Scrum cycle? Now, the beauty of Scrum is you will have a daily standards where all the questions will be posted. Okay. Now it's the duty of Scrum Master or a person who is in charge of this RCLs have to document it. Okay. Or generally that's how it happens. But somehow in many of the projects you will again maintain this RCL document which would be shared after the daily stand-ups. Every daily stand-up it would be updated with the questions or during the sprint analysis, right? During the sprint analysis section itself, all the questions will be posted. 90% of the questions should be done during the sprint analysis itself. Okay, where you will whatever questions are posted will be documented in RCL and that would be shared so that going forward if you have any question again or if you want to revisit those questions you can go and see into the RCL and get the clarification again. Okay, those clarifications will be given in the next day stand-up meeting. Okay, that's the only difference in Scrum. All right then. So this is it about requirement analysis. Okay. Uh, as and when if any additions have to be done on the requirement, how do we go ahead? Okay. So that's called as a term called as technical depth will be used, wherein if you have a requirement that should be supposed to be developed in this sprint and it is being delayed or because of some dependency it has been stopped or it has been postponed to a next release, you will have a chance where the dependency on the requirements delayed might break the application, and this has been case in many of the applications. So how do we go about it? So that's where as I said earlier, a tester should act as an analyst. He should analyze what is the impact of that particular requirement on the master requirement or the requirement that is already developed, right? So this will this will help you to analyze more, to understand more, to pose more questions and get the clarifications, right? So start thinking like an analyst. Just let's not confine ourselves as a normal software tester. Okay. For this again, you need to know the domain, you need to understand the requirement, you need to understand the application, what's the problem statement. So it's like you're drilling down to the core area. It's just like you're doing the micromanagement, right? So if you start doing micromanagement or you're going to the core, then you will know the big picture, you will understand the big picture. Okay. So that's what expected from requirement analysis from a tester. Alright. So this is it for today. Tomorrow we'll start on how to do the test scenario preparation from the requirements. Okay. Okay. So there is a question. Can you please send us some interview questions on requirements? Yeah, sure. Okay. The Google Drive was supposed to be shared. I'll ask the team members to get back to you. Okay. The next yesterday's session we have the videos, Nita. You can look into them. What I'll do is I'll ask the team members to send out a email, common email to all the attendees about the videos and the files, and you can go through them. Okay. Do we have a session tomorrow? No. I think it's on Friday again. Thursday, US time. Okay. The schedule will be shared again with you. Okay. How can you retrieve the data information? Yeah, so that's what I'll ask the team to send out a common mail to all of you. Okay, with the commonly asked FAQs. Okay, so that it will not be confusion. All right. Live project for this manual testing is not done, Asha. Okay, but we will show you or we will explain as in terms of real-time environment itself. Karthik, do you want to pitch in here?
Yeah, Mahesh, this fundamental thing is I hoped and wished that we did some more content on the Excel sheet that you developed for requirement.
No. People are
Because
asking
it looks
whether we
very...
have a real-time live project for this training.
So as per schedule, guys, once we go to manual test automation tools and the database testing parts, then we'll get to the manual testing live project.
Okay. Yeah. So from the RCL perspective, right? Tomorrow when we discuss the test scenarios, that's when I wanted to add more and more questions here. So that's when we will have more questions. The reason being, we actually didn't start on the requirement of AnyAut anyway, right? So I wanted to depict the RCL tomorrow. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions, team? According to our schedule, next meeting is on 6th of December. Uh,
Guys, just letting you know, once again, like I mentioned earlier, that the thing on 6th of December on this webinar link is for the demo sessions, which is continuation with the next programs. We have 1 day gap, and then we're starting back with the premium QA live training, and it will be on a different webinar link only for the paid members, please. That's the reason what you see. So what you have currently, the link that you joined is only for the demo sessions. It's not for all the sessions. So for all of the members who have actually already paid and are a premium member, you will get a new link that you will join on when we start the premium webinar.
Yes, for JPACT member it is December 1st. Yes, right. Okay, for premium members, frankly speaking, I don't know all these questions. Karthik, we will have to ask the team to get this resolved. People are asking, we are premium members, can we be part of JPACT as well?
So guys, very simple. I've already explained JPACT, and yesterday's session I told you to watch the day 2, or rather the orientation session 2 of JPACT. You should watch that. It'll give you all the details. There should be no questions after that. And believe me guys, we do not want to be doing spoon feeding out here. We do not believe in it. So you have to get a lot of answers yourself, because we are already addressing all of it. If you're not getting all of the answers, that means that you're not going through all the communication that we're trying to provide. Despite what we're providing and asking, please let us know where you have questions. So for example, if you're already a premium member, for what course, for what training, send that email across to learn@itlearn.com so we can tell you how you can upgrade accordingly to the JPACT program or anything else you want to take it. All right. So please be very independent. Please try and keep yourself occupied with the communication very much. That is very important, not only for the demos, but for every session going forward. You have to follow our direction and our communication, please. So if you're already part of JPACT, you're part of everything, so do not worry about it. Things will go on smoothly for you.
All right.
All right, Mahesh.
Yeah.
See you back in the
Thanks everyone for joining today's session, and we'll continue in the next session. Thank you.
Thank you all.